and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, September 11th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, welcome back to Yoshinobu Yamamoto. What to do with these 8 confusing pitchers. We got big games from the Tigers and the Braves, and much more. Let's jump in.
Holy cow! How about that?
How about P. Crow Armstrong? I just want to give him a shout out up at the top. That game just went final. He made 3 incredible catches in center field, including a game-ending home run robbery against Max Muncy. He's just a madman, Chris. Like, he is so good in the outfield, and he's gotten much better as a hitter throughout the season too. So
I mean, that was always the thing with P. Crow Armstrong is like, you know, as a prospect early on in his MLB career, it was like, if he's just decent as a hitter, he's going to be a freaking star because of how good the defense is. And he might be the best defensive center fielder in baseball already. And the bat seems pretty good right now. So yeah, he had a couple of just kind of bonkers plays in this one, including one that like there was some miscommunication with him and Cody Bellinger. And he had to like kind of make a last minute like backhand like Willie Mays Hayes catch.
yeah,
You know, have you seen that movie?
yeah, that's Major League, right?
Okay, all right. You never know.
No, it's worth asking for sure. All right, Chris, let's stick with you and your player of the night.
Keider Montero, the I think most impressive performance of the night in terms of results. Complete game shutout. He tossed a Maddox. For those of you who don't know, that's a complete game shutout with fewer than 100 pitches. And he was awesome. 17 whiffs on 96 pitches, 5 strikeouts, 3 hits in the complete game shutout. I just don't think it matters very much for fantasy. And I always feel bad when we do this. When we have this portion of the show that is dedicated to the most impressive performances of the day, but it's not really just about the most impressive performances of the day. We're also like meant to give a reason why this was exciting for fantasy, and nobody started Keider Montero, and I don't think this necessarily means he's someone you need to care about for fantasy. He is the 16th pitcher to throw a complete game shutout in the majors this season, and there are some really impressive names on the list of guys who have done it. Tyler Glasnow did it. Blake Snell, obviously. Dylan Cease with their no-hitters. But you've also got Tyler Phillips had a complete game shutout, and Joey Estes and Braxton Garrett had a complete game shutout against the Diamondbacks back in like May or June. I completely erased that one from my memory. And then some like Gavin Stone and Luis Severino and Kevin Gausman have all had complete game shutouts. So it's like about half of them are really good pitchers and half of them are just kind of guys at best. And I think Keider Montero is much more of just a guy, but this was a really good start, and that's great.
Tremendous start for Keider Montero, who did have 17 whiffs on 96 pitches. Kind of wish that he could just face the Rockies on the road every time out, but that is not going to be the case. I did want to highlight a change that he made in this one. He did lower his fastball usage, and he threw more sliders and curveballs, which is a great idea because his fastball gets hit really, really hard. So a tangible change that he made, and obviously went out and threw an amazing start. He's 12% rostered. It looks like he lines up to face the Orioles later this week and then at the Orioles again next week. So I don't think you're using him for either of those two starts. Would line up for the White Sox the final week of the season. So I'll just throw that out there now, get it on people's radars.
Yeah.
And, you know, Chris, last night, to stream or not to stream, I actually did say use Keider Montero against
There
the
you go.
Rockies.
I mean, look, that's the thing is like the Rockies on the road, the White Sox. Yeah, I think he can be useful in those matchups. 2 straight against the Orioles, probably not rolling that dice.
No. Let's just stick with the Tigers, who had a big game here. Want to highlight Parker Meadows, who went 2 for 3 with 2 walks and his 7th home run in 30 games since returning from the IL. A 308 batting average, 4 homers. Counting stats look good. 5 steals, 896 OPS, 28% rostered. He's been serviceable against lefties. I'm not going to say good, but he's been okay against them. And he's pretty much playing every day right now for the Tigers. I feel like we've expressed a little bit more optimism here, enthusiasm, I guess, for Parker Meadows. It feels like he should be more than 28% rostered.
Yeah, roster rates always get a little junky at this point in the season. There's a lot of teams that are out of it. There's a lot of leagues that are just over by now. I'm in a couple that like either the finals have started or they haven't or they're just finished. So that could explain it. But yeah, he has started, I believe, 29 of 34 games overall since returning from the IL. He's hitting really well. He's running the bases really well. He's not striking out that much. I think it's like 27 strikeout. Let me get the exact number. Yeah, 27 strikeouts, 125 plate appearances. That sounds pretty good. 22%. Like that's not a poor strikeout rate at all in a head-to-head points league. So I think Parker Meadows, even in 3 outfielder leagues, is looking like a pretty viable option at this point. I'm really impressed with what he's doing.
And I think he could make for a sneaky sleeper for next year as well. So just keep that name, file it away for next season, 5 outfielder leagues. And we've said it for the past couple of years. We keep thinking the Tigers lineup is going to take that next step with some of these young guys getting called up. And
they're like actually pretty good right now.
Are they?
I don't know what the overall record, but I think in the games that Parker Meadows has played since coming off the IL, they're 21-9.
I did see, I think just yesterday, I think they're only 3 games out of a wild card spot, which really
Tigers are slightly feisty-ish. Yeah, they're 2 games over 500. Let's go, Tigers.
I just pulled up their
WOBA. 3 games over 500.
WOBA in the second half for the Tigers, still 25th.
Yeah, the offense isn't great.
Yeah, wanted to give a shout out to Riley Green, who clearly has had a breakout season here. He's missed some time, but 263 batting average, 20 homers, 837 OPS, and obviously had a really good game here for the Tigers. My player of the night is going to be Seth Lugo, who dominated my New York Yankees. 7 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts. He had 14 whiffs on 105 pitches, 5 on the curve, 4 on the cutter, 4 on the fastball. Barely allowed any hard contact in this one. And he changed up the pitch mix. He threw a lot more cutters. He threw more changeups. And he threw less fastballs, less four seams, less sinkers. And that is a really good idea for Seth Lugo, who throws about 18 different pitches. But of all those pitches, the fastballs are the ones that get hit quite a bit. So, yeah, I think mixing in a little bit more spin, upping the changeup usage, that has helped Seth Lugo. And he now has 3 straight 7-inning quality starts. So we had a pretty rough stretch in there, Chris, but it looks like Seth Lugo is now finishing strong once again.
Yeah, I think the overall, like you look at the overall numbers, I think the ERA is still under 3 for the season. Since the All-Star break, I think it's 381.
That sounds right.
And I think that's what I always expected Seth Lugo to do, is be more like a high 3s ERA guy, but with the ability to go deep into games as much as he does and, pretty good team backing him up, it still does make for, I think, a must-start pitcher moving forward, especially now that he's out of that, like, August doldrum or whatever you want to call it.
And he might help people win some championships because next week, 2-start week against the Tigers and the Giants. So 2 pretty
good, yeah,
awesome matchups there for Seth Lugo. Wanted to give a shout out to the Atlanta Braves as well. Their offense had a big night against the Nationals. They won 12-zip. Michael Harris 3 for 6 with a double dong. Matt Olson 3 for 5 with a double, 2 runs and 2 RBI. And people may not have realized this about Olson because the overall numbers are still lacking. But over his last 46 games, he basically has been Matt Olson. 272 batting average, 12 homers, and an OPS right around 900. So, that's basically since like mid-July. Matt Olson has been basically himself. Wanted to spend a little bit of time on Michael Harris because he's not a name that we've talked a lot about this season. Missed a ton of time with that hamstring injury. 26 games since returning from the IL. Only batting .234. He's got 6 home runs, 17 RBI helps, but 0 steals. He's got 2 caught stealing during that time and a 680 OPS. On the season as a whole, it's a 661 OPS. Everything that I was excited about Michael Harris doing last year and the improvements he made from his rookie season to his second season, have basically all taken a step back here in the third season for Michael Harris.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he had that injury in May,
I think it was
June.
Yeah,
missed 2 months. It was one where remember he got off to a really slow start last year as well. As the summer months came, he really heated up and ended up being the breakout that we hoped he would be. And it's kind of like the hamstring injury maybe prevented that from ever really happening. So yeah, it hasn't been the season that you wanted from Michael Harris. I'm still mostly willing to buy the dip for 2025. I still think this should be a very, very good lineup. I know it's been a little hit or miss this season, but I think when the Braves are, when everyone's not hurt except for Marcell Ozuna, which it seemed like is what happened this year, I think the Braves are going to be a good offense, and Michael Harris is more like the 800-ish OPS bat we saw last year than the 661 he has right now.
All right, before we hit the break, reminder to sign up for the FBT newsletter if you haven't already. I realize it is a crazy time in the sports calendar. Football has started up. Obviously, baseball is winding down here, but we're not going anywhere. We're still podcasting 5 times a week. Chris is still putting out a newsletter every single weekday. So again, if you are watching on YouTube, scan the QR code. That will take you right to the website where you can click on the FBT logo, punch in your email address, and you can sign up for the FBT newsletter for free. Let's take our first break. And when we return, we'll hit the news and notes right after this.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sport into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back in news and notes. What do you know? As soon as we pump up Reynaldo Lopez for how well he's pitched since returning from injury, he left Tuesday's start due to right shoulder tightness, and his velocity was way down across the board. Fastball was down 3.6 miles per hour. His slider down nearly 5 miles per hour, which is a very troublesome sight. My guess is this won't end well, at least for the rest of this season, but that's just speculation on my part.
Yeah, I mean, no way of knowing, but we've now had he's thrown more innings than any season since 2019, I believe, maybe 2018. And then we've now had an elbow and a shoulder scare. So I would be surprised if we saw Reynaldo Lopez pitch again this season. The fact that the velocity was down seems to indicate that it was an issue from the start. Yeah, doesn't look great.
Yeah, Reynaldo Lopez up to 128 and 2/3 innings. Last year, he threw 66, and this is his most since 2019, as you mentioned. Luis Castillo was placed in the IL with a grade 2 left hamstring strain, and I apologize. A lot of people were asking me what to do with Luis Castillo. They said he was going for an MRI on Monday, and those results didn't come out until later on Tuesday. So it kind of got a little bit difficult in terms of do I start? Do I sit? Do I drop Luis Castillo? But the fact that he's gone on the IL, I think it's pretty safe to drop Luis Castillo there.
Yeah, grade 2 with only 2 weeks left in the season, basically.
Yeah.
18 days. Yeah, I think it's pretty unlikely we see him again in the regular season, at least.
Tyler Glasnow felt good after his bullpen on Tuesday and will face hitters in a simulated game over the weekend. Kyle Schwarber left Tuesday's game.
What I saw was he's going to return after that. If it goes well. He may not be fully stretched out, but they're just kind of running out of time. So what I saw was they are likely to just have kind of like Yoshi Yamamoto today, who only pitched 4 innings in his first start back, right?
Yeah. I think that makes sense. They're running out of time. They've got to build Glasnow up for the postseason. So, the first couple of times out, it's, maybe he gives you 3, 4, 5 innings, something like that, but they could be really good innings there from Tyler Glasnow. Kyle Schwarber left Tuesday's game with left elbow discomfort. Jacob deGrom will make his season debut Friday against the Mariners. Max Scherzer will make his return on Saturday, also against the Mariners. deGrom in 4 rehab starts. pretty much Jacob deGrom,
Yeah.
0.84 ERA, 0.47 whip, 15 strikeouts over 10 and 2/3 innings. He only got up to 49 pitches in his last start. So my guess is 60 to 70 pitches in his debut. But against the Mariners.
Yeah, like it'll be hard in a head-to-head points league.
Yeah.
Because wins and quality starts are so important there, and he might only go 4 innings.
Yeah.
He might strike out 10 in 4 innings. Like he averaged 98 miles per hour with his 4-seamer in his rehab outings at AAA. His whiff rate on his slider was like 50%. On the changeup, it was like 43%. Yeah, I this is the lead for the newsletter tomorrow, but I don't know what to expect from Jacob deGrom coming back from his second Tommy John surgery. I think he's probably just going to dominate the rest of the way, even if it's only like 14 innings.
Mm-hmm. And it's a tough spot for me as a baseball fan, as a fantasy baseball player, because obviously I'm rooting for Jacob deGrom and I want him to do well. But if he is awesome for his final 3 starts, I mean, that will give people confidence to draft him even higher next year in drafts. So I don't know how good I want Jacob deGrom to actually do, but yeah, still rooting for the guy. Teoscar Hernandez was out Tuesday and has now missed 4 straight after fouling a ball off of his ankle last Friday. Connor Norby was scratched from the lineup for unknown reasons. Chris, did you see anything here for Connor Norby?
No, I didn't see anything.
Yeah, weird. Ben Joyce was placed on the IL with right shoulder inflammation, and I guess one of Hunter Strickland or Roansy Contreras would be next up for saves, but that's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's like we talked about Miami with Calvin Fauché on the IL. I think it's unlikely to matter enough to worry too much about it. But if you're truly desperate, yeah, I would guess Strickland. He's got a little bit of experience in that role. That seems like something Ron Washington would care about. So if you have to do that, yeah, I guess he's the best option.
Ben Lively left his start early after getting hit in the leg by a comebacker. Osvaldo Bido was placed in the IL with a right wrist flexor tendonitis. Brady Basso was recalled and is a name to watch in deeper leagues. Robbie Ray is scheduled to throw 50 to 60 pitches in a bullpen on Wednesday. He's on the IL with a hamstring strain. The Cardinals promoted one of their top prospects, Thomas Saggese, who is 22 years old, and he's played all over the infield in the minors. This season, a .253 batting average, 20 homers, 9 steals, a .751 OPS, has taken a step back this year, put up some pretty massive numbers in the minors last year. Only 5% rostered. Anything to see here, Chris, with Thomas Saggese, or maybe just a name to watch in Dynasty League?
Among the 3 prospects we learned about getting called up yesterday, Jason Dominguez, Kumar Rocker, and Thomas Saggese. Saggese is clearly the least interesting of that group. But it's worth a look, I think, in deeper categories leagues. There's a little bit of power speed there. Yeah.
Tyler McGill is sticking in the Mets rotation for at least one more start following his great outing on Monday. And Anthony Rendon was placed in the IL with a left oblique strain retroactive to Sunday.
Can I just one real quick complaint? So in the podcast listeners league, the first round of the playoffs was 2 weeks, right? We did a 2-week scoring system.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing that for the second round of the playoffs.
We are.
We are?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It didn't carry over. The scores have reset from the first week then.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're going to add them together.
Add them together at the end of the season.
Because I thought I was looking at that.
I hope you set your lineup.
I did, but I was looking at that earlier today, and I thought that I lost last week. And I was going to say that the reason I lost is because I started Justin Verlander, and my opponent had Ryan Nelson. And I had like a 25-point lead heading into Sunday Night Baseball. And I was like, great, it's safe. I don't even need to worry about it. Turns out I did need to worry about it. It went very poorly.
Yeah,
but I did set my lineup.
I know there's a way on CBS to like add in the previous week's scores. So you see that. I'm a little lazy, to be honest with it. So, yeah, we're just going to add the scores together at the end of the 2-week scoring period there. And, you still have a chance, Chris. So,
yeah, it's not looking great, but I was confused, so I'm glad I got some clarification on that because I thought it was 2 weeks.
The lone representative on this podcast who is still alive, in one of the podcast leagues. So
Love to see it. Love to see
Shout
it.
out to you. What do we do with these 8 confusing pitchers right now? Start, sit / hold. Do you drop any of these names? I don't know. Let's find out. Taj Bradley turned in a quality start at the Phillies. 6 innings, 4 runs. 3 of those were earned. He had 6 strikeouts with 16 whiffs on 90 pitches. Still allowed 2 homers in this one. Lots of hard contact, but completely changed the pitch mix, and it did help him get a ton of whiffs. 76% rostered, 50% started for Taj Bradley, who's at the Guardians later this week. He looks like he's home against the Blue Jays next week and at Boston the final week of the season. What do we do, Chris? Are you just holding Taj Bradley to prevent other teams from getting him? Is he all right to drop? Do you want to start him?
What were the matchups at Cleveland later this week versus Toronto? I don't know if I love starting him in any of them. It is worth noting the splitter looked better in this one. He got 7 whiffs with it. The movement profile wasn't quite where it was earlier in the season. He was still not getting as much drop on the pitch, but I think in his previous start, he was getting like 5 inches of drop less. And in this one, it was 2 inches less. So that's a good sign, but I don't see how you could start Taj Bradley with confidence against any of those matchups. Maybe Toronto would be the closest, but he just seems, after a stretch where it looked like he had figured it out, it seems like he's back to being the guy he was early in the season, last season, where the stuff is really good and the highs are going to be really high, and maybe you're desperate and he can give you something there, but I can't trust him right now. No.
Are you okay calling him a drop if you need the roster spot?
How badly do you need a roster spot this week, right?
Like, you want to pick up Matthew Boyd.
I can't say I'm more confident in Matthew Boyd. I mean, Matthew Boyd has really good matchups, right?
He faces the White Sox this week, and then I think he's a 2-star pitcher for next week. One of the starts is against the Twins. I will quickly look.
Yeah, whatever I remember we talked about this the other night.
Twins and Cardinals next week for Matthew Boyd.
I think in a points league, I'd be fine dropping Bradley for Boyd.
Okay. Ranger Suarez has been pretty mid since returning from injury. He was up against Tampa Bay, 5 1/3 innings, 12 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks to 2 strikeouts. He allowed 10 hard hits in this one. Velocity was down, 4 starts since returning from the IL, a 4.19 ERA and a 1.55 whip. He has only completed 6 innings once in his last 8 starts. That's Ranger Suarez. He's 69% started. Looks like he's in line for 2 starts next week at the Brewers and at the Mets. Kind of tough matchups.
Yeah, that's not great.
What do you think about Ranger Suarez?
I think in a points league, I might be okay starting him, but I think I'm leaning against using him in a roto league, especially if you need to protect your ratios, just because he's been getting hit really hard. And, this was what we talked about earlier on the season, where he was doing really, really well. And what he was doing really well with was pitching in the shadows of the zone, close enough that hitters had to swing, close enough that he could steal a few strikes, but not close enough that hitters could do much damage with it. And that can work. Dallas Keuchel's whole career was built off of that. But it's really hard to do it consistently. And whether it's the back injury, whether it's just regression to the mean, Ranger Suarez has seemingly lost that ability. So I think he's pretty fringy moving forward.
Yeah, Ranger Suarez, those 2 matchups next week, the Mets and the Braves, both Mets and Brewers, top 11 in WOBA against left-handed pitching this season. So in a points league, you could probably get away with it. In a categories league, if you're protecting ratios, I would probably stay away from those 2 matchups.
It's been a few decades since the Braves played in Milwaukee. I have to tell you.
That's fair. Yu Darvish was solid at the Mariners, 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. He did allow 2 homers in this one, 12 whiffs on 63 pitches. That's a 19% swinging strike rate. And on the season, 3.52 ERA, a 1.14 whip. He's only 79% rostered, 31% started, and looks like 2 starts next week for Darvish up against the Astros, which is scary, but also the White Sox.
Yeah, so this is tough because it's 63 and 63 pitches in his last 2 starts since coming back from the IL. Hadn't pitched since May. Didn't go on a minor league rehab assignment, right? So
No, I think he threw some simulated games, but that's it.
How much, like, can he get to 85 pitches in his next couple of starts? That seems reasonable. Like he's, a veteran. Maybe they just wanted to get him out after 5 innings, and in different circumstances, he might have pitched 6 or more than 63 pitches. I don't know. I think I'm okay starting him. I think I would start him ahead of Ranger Suarez next week, actually.
I feel better about Darvish than either of the first 2 pitchers we spoke about.
I think so.
Yeah. Let's talk about George Kirby, who got hit hard once again up against the Padres. 5 innings, 5 runs. He'll have 2 more homers in this one. And over his last 6 starts, Kirby has a 6.68 ERA and a 1.58 WHIP, just under a strikeout per inning. 9 homers allowed in his last 6 starts. Lots of hard contact. The BABIP is high. The hits are obviously adding up here, but when you live in the zone and you give up that much hard contact, I mean, you can be prone to stretches like this. This one's kind of a tough one to figure out. He's at the Rangers next week. That's typically a good matchup.
I'd start him.
It feels lazy to just say, "Oh yeah, you're starting Kirby. He's ranked as like a top 12 starting pitcher."
I'm a lazy guy.
Yeah. Is that it? There's like nothing else.
Yeah, like I'll have that conversation about guys in the 30 to 50 range.
Yeah.
But we've seen stretches like this from Kirby this season. He has generally figured it out. I'm going to go down with that ship.
All right. I did want to quickly pull up his season-long splits just to see if he's faced Texas already this season and how they've done against him. And 1 start, 6 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts. So, all right. Maybe that bodes well for George Kirby next week. Chris Bassett pitched very well up against the Mets in a revenge game. 6 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, 10 whiffs on 101 pitches. And he's turned in a quality start in 2 of his last 3. He's got a 2.50 ERA over that span, 24 strikeouts over 18 innings. So starting to get the strikeouts back. And Chris Bassett, 63% started on CBS. Looks like a 2-star pitcher at the Rangers, at the Rays next week. I kind of like it.
Good matchups. He's pitching well right now. Look, Chris Bassett, he's going to end up with a pretty disappointing season. And maybe we've been a little too hesitant to be critical of him, given his track record, which has been, bad stretches that he always generally bounces back from. And he has not really this season. 4.20 ERA, 1.41 WHIP especially is really tough, but
yeah.
I'm going to start him against Texas and Tampa Bay for sure.
Spencer Arrighetti bounced back with a strong start up against Oakland. 6 2/3 innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts, 13 whiffs on 97 pitches. And there's been some ups and downs. We know that the last start out was obviously really bad.
But not as bad as we thought.
Over his last 11 starts, it's a 3.16 ERA, 1.16 WHIP, well over a strikeout per inning, and he's home against the Angels next week. So I think I'm good with that.
Yeah, what makes Arrighetti's recent stretch especially frustrating, and I think what might make people think he's been worse than he has been, is that his 2 worst starts by far in that stretch were 1 against the White Sox, coming off the back-to-back double-digit strikeout games?
Yep.
And then the most recent one against not against Houston, Seattle?
It was a good matchup. Yeah.
It was a team we expected him to dominate. He got let down by the defense a little bit, ended up only pitching. Did he even get out of the first inning?
I don't think so.
And so the lows have been not just really low, but very memorable. And so I think people have probably a perception of Arrighetti that he's been less useful lately, because the 2 times you tried to use him were really bad. But
yeah,
a bunch of people started him this week, as they should have. He's got a great matchup next week as well. It's a volatile profile. We know the command especially has been inconsistent, but the stuff is really good. And I think I'm just rolling with Arrighetti. I would start him ahead of Suarez and Bradley for sure. Darvish is tough just because it's 2 starts. But I feel better about the ratios for Arrighetti next week than either Darvish or Bassett. I think he's a better bet, at least.
Mm-hmm. And probably, Well, I can't say better for strikeouts because they have 2 starts, but
Yeah.
on a per start basis, I think obviously Arrighetti has a ton of upside in that department as well. 2 starting pitchers that turned back into pumpkins here on Tuesday. Mackenzie Gore, not great up against the Braves. 3 2/3 innings, 7 runs. 2 of those were earned. Some bad defense behind him, but he did have 3 quality starts in a row before this one, so we were touting Mackenzie Gore, but a bit of a letdown here. Does get the Marlins later this week, and then he's at the Cubs next week. David Peterson, also pretty bad at Toronto. 4 1/3, 5 runs. 4 of those were earned. And previous 7 starts before this, he was dominant, 1.81 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP. And David Peterson looks like a 2-star pitcher next week up against the Nationals and the Phillies. So, Chris, what are you doing here with Mackenzie Gore and David Peterson?
So these are on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of the amount I believed in them. But with Gore, the frustrating thing is he had turned his season around in the last month or so, or couple of weeks at least, by getting his fastball velocity back up to like 96 miles per hour on average, which is where he was early in the season when he looked like a breakout. It was back down to 95 in this one. And so that's where it's like, well, if we can't, I think he's good when his mechanics are on and he's throwing hard and the fastball is a plus pitch. If the difference between Mackenzie Gore being really good and being pretty bad is 96 to 95 miles per hour, I just don't know if he's a guy you can trust.
Yeah.
So yeah, I if you're in a daily lineup league, I think I'd still start him against the Marlins. Probably not after that though.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. If you're locked in for the weekly lineup and he's already started one, I'd be okay dropping him for somebody else with better matchups next week. And David Peterson lines up
Kumar Rocker, honestly. Like,
yeah,
I know we don't know what the workload's going to be like, but I think there's a chance he just shoves for the next 3 weeks. And we're talking about him in really, really interesting ways for 2025 because he's been completely dominant.
What about David Peterson?
Like I said, I never really believed in him, not nearly as much as Mackenzie Gore. So this backs up my prior. I don't think David Peterson's particularly good, and he had a bad start. I'm fine letting him go. In a daily league, like if you want to hang on to him until that start against Washington, they've been bad against lefties. They're still a bottom 5 offense against lefties, I believe. I'm fine with that. I'm not starting him against the Phillies and Brewers after that, though.
Mm-hmm. Again, that was David Peterson. Let's take our final break, and when we return, welcome back to Yoshinobu Yamamoto. We'll talk about that right after this.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
Welcome back in, and welcome back to Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was dominant in his return up against the Cubs. 4 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts to 0 walks. He had 11 whiffs on 59 pitches, 18.6% swinging strike rate here. He only got up to 59 pitches, so maybe 70 or 75 in his next outing. He's only 29% started and looks like a 2-star pitcher next week, home against the Rockies and at the Atlanta Braves. I think it's wheels up for Yamamoto.
Him,
yeah. Anything you would like to add on this performance here?
No, I mean, velocity was up a little bit, which is a good sign coming back from the shoulder injury. He's only got to make it through 3 more starts. If this was July and he was coming back, I might have some questions, but I'm certainly starting him with Road Rockies and the Braves next week. Yeah.
He will be a fascinating fascinating pitcher to evaluate for next season.
Yeah.
Because I was looking into just all the underlying numbers, a 251 FIP, 277 xFIP, 10.6 K per 9, and he gets ground balls, 48% ground ball rate, pitches for one of, if not the best team in all of baseball. But we're going to have this lingering shoulder injury in our minds and just the concern of whether or not his body can hold up for a full MLB season. We just haven't seen that happen yet. So it's a concern for me at least, but on a per start basis, talent wise, I think he's probably one of the top 10 or 12 pitchers in baseball.
Well, and I think this is something we're going to have to keep in mind with all Dodgers pitchers next year is this is
True.
Likely going to be a 6-man rotation next year with Shohei Ohtani returning to the rotation. Obviously, given that everyone else there has gotten hurt or been bad this year, it probably behooves them to keep Tyler Glass now on a 6-man rotation and Yoshi Yamamoto.
Will they even have enough arms to fill out a 6-man rotation?
Yeah, they might have to sign whoever the best pitching free agent is.
Corbin Burns.
Just to get to a 6-man rotation. But no, it's something to keep in mind just with, in Japan, generally speaking, they throw on every 6th day rather than every 5th day. And so, it's not just Ohtani, that way. A lot of teams have had to make adjustments with that. We saw that with Kodai Senga as well. And yeah, the fact that he wasn't able to hold up does raise questions about his long-term value, but top 20 pitcher for sure next year, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're someone who typically drafts like 2 pitchers in the first 4 or 5 rounds, if you can get Yamamoto as your SP2 in round 4, I think I'd feel really, really good about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's been as good as advertised.
Yeah, it's just
like talent plays.
Yeah, it's just workload. Like, how many innings are we going to get? That's really the only lingering question I have on Yamamoto. Let's talk some waiver wire pitchers from Tuesday's action. Albert Suarez turned in a strong start at the Red Sox. 6 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, 21 whiffs on 101 pitches. Pretty awesome start here for Albert Suarez. Rhett Lauder was solid at the Cardinals. 5 shutout innings with 3 strikeouts there. JP Sears, a quality start at Houston. 6 shutout innings. Only 1 strikeout in this one. Last 8 starts for JP Sears, 2.81 ERA, 0.97 whip. And Aaron Savali, a solid start at San Francisco, 5 1/3, 2 runs, 2 strikeouts, 11 starts with the Brewers, 3.84 ERA, 123 whip. If you're looking at matchups for next week, Savali is at Arizona. JP Sears home against the Yankees in a revenge game. Rhett Lauder is home against the Pirates. And Albert Suarez, 2 starts against San Francisco and Detroit. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, Lauder has been pretty much as advertised. And what I mean by that is he was a top prospect, but it was more of this is a high projectable floor, not necessarily a high ceiling. That's always tough when it comes to pitchers because we are not as good as projecting either ceiling or floor as we think we are. But he's basically been what we expected. But he's got a good matchup against the Pirates next week. I'm not really super impressed by what Rhett Lauder has done, despite superficially pretty impressive numbers. But I think he can be worth streaming against the Pirates next week. But if you're asking me to rank these 4, did you ask me that?
I didn't, but you can.
I don't know if any of them are particularly impactful fantasy pitchers in the long run, but Albert Suarez gets 2 bottom 5 offenses next week. And he's pitching well right now, and he's got that offense behind him. I am fine with Albert Suarez as a streamer next week. I think he probably should be 65% rostered next week.
Mm-hmm. So that would be about double of where Suarez is now. So I would sign off on that as well. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of these, I probably would take JP Sears. The Yankees are actually pretty middling against left-handed pitching this season. Not that I love it, but if you're desperate for a streamer, I think that could work out fine. And then probably Lauder and Savali at the bottom of the list. Mm-hmm. Some waiver wire hitters. Carlos Santana hit another homer, his 21st home run of the season. He's 40% rostered. I think that's probably fine, right? I don't think there's any overwhelming excitement for Carlos Santana.
Carlos Santana is someone that realistically could fluctuate between 40 and 70% rostered, and I would have no opinion on it one way or the other. If you need a corner infielder this week, he's perfectly fine to add, but I'm never going to complain if you drop Carlos Santana either.
Some outfielders in 5 outfielder leagues. Matt Wallner, 2 for 5 with his 12th home run. Updated numbers since being recalled on July 7th. 290 batting average, 11 home runs, an OPS over 1,000. And just incredible StatCast data. 94.6 average exit velocity, 21% barrel rate for Matt Wallner during that stretch. Tommy Pham has hit well since joining the Royals. 2 for 5 with his 9th home run. And with the team, he's led off all 9 games, 270 batting average, 2 homers, and 1 steal. Andrew McCutchen has quietly had a very strong second half, 284 batting average, 8 homers, 25 RBI, a 939 OPS for Andrew McCutchen. More so deeper league stuff here, Chris. 5 outfielder leagues. I'll throw Parker Meadows in this mix. How would you rank Meadows, Wallner, Pham, McCutchen?
Meadows, Wallner. Pham has not played every day, right?
With the Royals, he has. He started
played
all
every day?
9,
Okay.
and he's let off all 9, yeah.
I'd probably go Meadows, Wallner, Pham, McCutchen then. I think Meadows and Wallner both should be more widely rostered than they are. I think probably the problem with Wallner specifically is the strikeout rate's always going to be so high that it's just going to make it hard for people in points leagues to get over. But Meadows, we talked earlier, he's playing close to every day. And I think over the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's actually been every day. I don't think he's missed a game in like the last 14 or something. So I would go Meadows at the top. And I just want to shout out Andrew McCutchen homered today, right?
Yeah.
He's got 20 homers. He's like been way stronger in his 30s than I think anyone expected him to be. I feel like he fell off pretty hard and it was just like kind of forgotten. And this doesn't really matter for fantasy because he's not an everyday player and he's in a bad lineup, so the counting stats are pretty bad. But like this is like 37-year-old Andrew McCutchen with like a 112 OPS plus. He's starting to put together like an interesting fringe Hall of Fame case is what I'm going to say for Andrew McCutchen. I don't think he's ever going to get there, but he had the peak 4 straight years with top 5 MVP finishes. He's starting to put he's going to get around like 50 plus wins above replacement, 300 plus home runs. He's going to get some consideration is all I'm saying.
Yeah. 300 plus homers, 200 plus steals for his career, 831 OPS at this point, over
370 career OBP. Really awesome career from Andrew McCutchen, and has not declined as sharply as I think a lot of people, including myself, expected.
He's playing on one leg too. Like, doesn't he have a partially torn Achilles? And he's still doing this. Like, man, one of my favorite players.
Absolutely.
McCutchen, like, basically when I started playing fantasy baseball is exactly when he got called up. So I have only known in my fantasy career Andrew McCutchen being the top prospect and following his career throughout. So I've always just kind of thought about it that way. Like, yes, the year I started was the year Andrew McCutchen got called up. And I've always looked at it that way. And awesome
player. Yeah.
Love Andrew McCutchen. Some pitching leftovers. Pablo Lopez finally did it. The ERA is under 4 for the season. 7 innings, 4 unearned runs, 10 strikeouts in this one. His ERA, Pablo Lopez, was 5.63 on June 18th. In 14 starts since, 2.32 ERA, 103 whip, over a strikeout per inning. This is the Pablo Lopez experience, I guess. Zach Gallen pitched well against Texas. 5 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts for him. He has scoreless starts in 3 of his last 4, 7+ strikeouts in all 4 of those starts. And Shota Imanaga turned in a quality start at the Dodgers. 7 innings, 3 runs, 4 strikeouts, 3 homers allowed in this one. They were clearly all solo homers, which helped. But 16 whiffs on 89 pitches. Lots of hard contact, 12 hard hits. I think Imanaga is a little bit lucky to walk away with a quality start in this one. But anything to add on him, Gallen, and Pablo Lopez?
Gallen seems to have figured it out. It's been a weird season, especially since he came back from that hamstring injury. It's been a lot of ups and downs, but the control seems to be better of late. You'd like to see him pitch a little deeper into this one, but I think you feel pretty good about him, Pablo Lopez. We're going to do this next year. Maybe it's not with Pablo Lopez. Maybe it's with, I don't know, George Kirby or someone. Some very good pitcher is going to get off to a miserable start and people are going to cry and complain about it, and just have faith. I know it's frustrating in the moment when Pablo Lopez had a 5.83 ERA or 5.63 ERA on June 18th. The worst thing you can do with a pitcher who you know is good when they are struggling like that is to trade them when their value is the lowest, because what you're compounding the problem. You're banking the 5.63 ERA. You're selling them for a player who will probably not be as good as them, and then you're not getting the improvement. And so that's just, I know it's tough. I know it's frustrating. Have faith in these guys. And then Imanaga, I've seen some discussion about his changeup, and he threw it more in this one, three whiffs with it. It is a distinct pitch from his sweeper or from his splitter. You usually don't see pitchers throw both a splitter and a changeup, but it's an actual pitch for him. And he's shown an ability this season to add and subtract things to his arsenal when he needs it. And look, I know he gave up 3 home runs today. You're right. He was probably lucky to get out of this one with a quality start against the Dodgers. It's also the Dodgers. Most teams aren't quite that good, and he's had a remarkable rookie season. And I think he's going to be a really interesting player to value next year because there's some ace production there. The ERA, certainly. The whip, really, really good. Strikeouts are just okay. The underlying metrics suggest there's been a decent amount of fortune on his side. I don't know if I want to say luck, but it's an interesting profile when you're looking ahead to 2025.
All right, Chris, I'm putting you on the spot here. September 11th. Obviously not going to hold you to it, but who do you foresee ranking higher for next year, Pablo Lopez or Yoshi Yamamoto?
Probably Pablo.
The innings are safer.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's going to end up with 110 more innings, right?
Yeah. And I know he had the shoulder stuff earlier in his career, but Pablo Lopez has
a complete non-issue 4 years in a row now, right?
He's going to wind up with 180 plus innings in 3 years in a row.
And the one before, 2021 was the one before that. But the last 5 years, he's only missed time with injury once, or one of those years in 2021. He made it through 2020, shortened season, but he didn't get hurt. So yeah, I think we're kind of past that. I mean, look, he's almost 30, or he will be 29 at the start of next season. So I don't think he's any more of an injury concern than any other 29-year-old starting pitcher, I guess, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Again, that was Pablo Lopez. Let's talk some hitting leftovers. Cedric Mullins had himself a huge game, 2 for 4 with 2 socks and a shoe. He is now up to 17 homers and 27 steals for the season. Having a pretty big second half is Cedric Mullins, who, early on, we kind of wrote him off because, all right, the playing time was dwindling.
Mm-hmm.
The Orioles had all these options, but the second half numbers, 286, 8 homers, 11 steals, 939 OPS. That's a pretty awesome player.
He's going to he might end up with a 2030 season. Yeah, that's pretty remarkable.
It's a bad batting average, but I think you were expecting that.
And it still does feel like we saw in the first half that the floor is super low. And at some point, the Orioles might decide it's not worth it. But didn't happen this year. So, yeah, I think there's a decent chance he's just undervalued in fantasy in 2025 again.
Again, that was Cedric Mullins. Trey Turner is turning things back up, 3 for 5 with a double dong, 4 RBI. Last 25 games for him, he's batting .304, 5 home runs, only 1 steal. You'd like Turner to run more, but he had the hamstring injury earlier on in the season, so I think that probably has affected him. Zach Neto continues his breakout season, 2 for 3 with a double and his 21st home run. Another one, big second half, 272, 9 homers, 15 steals, 869 OPS. Lane Thomas is coming back to life, 2 for 4 with his 11th home run. 9 September games, he's batting .364 with 3 home runs, 1 steal, and an 1140 OPS. Fernando Tatis hit a homer. Manny Machado hit another home run. And Christian Walker, his first big game since returning from the IL, 2 for 4 with a double dong and 3 RBI there. Lots of names, Chris, but anyone stand out here? Anything you'd like to mention?
So I think Trey Turner's a really interesting one for 2025 as well, because overall the hitting has been pretty solid. 295 average. If not for the injury, he easily would have gotten to 100 plus runs, probably 75 RBI as well. 15 steals is really disappointing. However, You mentioned the hamstring injury. He got hurt on May 3rd. Did you realize on May 3rd, Trey Turner had 10 steals already?
Yeah, no, he got off to a great start.
Yeah, he was on a 50 steal pace, and he's stolen 5 bases in what, 70 games since then, something like that.
Oof, yeah,
71 games. So like
he's still 96th percentile sprint speed,
which is actually I think he'd been like 99th or 98th percentile like every previous year. So he has slowed down a little bit, and I think the hamstring injury is a reason why. But last year we were also like, well, he didn't steal as much as he probably could have. He was on pace to do it early on. I don't know how much you can expect Trey Turner to steal next season, but I will say he always seems to get there in some way. Like if the steals aren't quite there, he usually hits a little better. Probably a second round pick, right?
Exactly what I was thinking. He just feels like a second rounder at this point. He's just not, in my opinion, a first round impact bat. And
yes.
I mean, what it looks like, if he can stay healthy for a full season, I think he's still capable of hitting 300 with like 25 and really good counting stats. But it's, the first couple of years in Philly, it's just been a little bit off for Trey Turner. So I think he's still a really good player, but just feels like a second round pick.
And then the other thing I will point out, Fernando Tatis, good to see him do something since coming back from that injury. Another guy who did not have a minor league rehab assignment, so not terribly surprising that he's been struggling. Manny Machado is the Padres' all-time home run leader now.
What?
Right?
Wow.
Who was the other one? There are 3 currently active players who are the franchise home run leader for a franchise. It's Manny Machado with the Padres. I can't remember the second one, and Giancarlo Stanton with the Marlins.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny that Manny Machado, like that doesn't seem like it could be right, but like then you start to think about like who are the longtime Padres. Really like Adrian Gonzalez and Brian Giles were there for a while, but like they were in a horrible park for their power. So yeah, that was a weird one to see today. But as far as I know, a true fact.
I really want to know that third player now who's an active franchise home run leader for their team.
Previous Padres home run leader, by the way, Nate Colbert. A name that I will admit I was not familiar with before today.
All right. Some bullpen updates from Tuesday for the Pirates. Aroldis Chapman got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He gave up 1 run on 3 hits, but picked up his 8th save. For the Orioles, Sir Anthony Dominguez got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He struck out 2 for his 10th save. For the Reds, Alexis Diaz was unavailable. Emilio Pagan got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He allowed 3 base runners, but also struck out 3 for his first save. For the Brewers, Devin Williams allowed a hit and a walk, but struck out 2 for his 10th save. And for the Cubs, Porter Hodge got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He walked 1, but picked up his 5th save. There was something going on there. He was like holding his chest. The trainer came out. It feels like maybe he had a shortness of breath or something like that, but he was able to close it out, and hopefully everything is all good there with Porter Hodge. 3 names on this list that are available. Chris, how would you rank Hodge, Dominguez, and Chapman if you needed saves?
Dominguez, Hodge, Chapman, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'd probably put Hodge at the top of the list.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I think Hodge and Dominguez are probably interchangeable there.
By the way, it's another one that's makes sense, but is also kind of surprising. Mike Trout is the Angels franchise home run record.
Yeah. That makes some sense. To stream or not to stream for Wednesday, we have Matthew Boyd at the White Sox. Absolutely 100,000% start him. Cody Bradford is at the D-backs. We have, can we get a good start out of Casey Mize against the Rockies in Detroit?
I mean, he was good back in like April.
It could happen.
That one I could see for sure.
Yeah. Zebby Matthews is home against the Angels. We got Colin Ray at the Giants. I think for me, it's Boyd, Bradford, and if you want to try, I guess Casey Mize, but
honestly, I would go Mize or Gomber ahead of Cody Bradford, actually.
Oof. It is
don't love
tough
the matchup. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very tough, but he's pitched really well.
He's been really good all year. It's just that's a really tough matchup.
Yep, sure is. For the Thursday slate, we have DJ Hers is home against the Marlins. Gavin Williams is home against Tampa Bay. He got destroyed his last time out against the Dodgers. Kumar Rocker's debut against the Mariners, and Frankie Montas is at the Giants.
So you guys presumably talked a lot about Kumar Rocker yesterday, right?
Yep.
My hot take. This might be too hot, but I'll put it out there. I am more excited to see Kumar Rocker the rest of the way than Jason Dominguez.
I don't think that's a hot take, especially just because we've seen Dominguez once before already.
Yeah. But like, I mean, even for fantasy, like I think Rocker could be a difference maker down the stretch. I think there will probably be some innings limitations. He's only thrown more than 70 innings or 70 pitches once so far, but the landing spot at Seattle, the stuff looks incredible. He might be that guy we thought he was, 4 years ago when he was in college.
Mm-hmm. For the Thursday slate, I will go with DJ Hers, Montas, and
I'd go Rocker.
Yeah, I'd probably put him third on that list. All right, we are going to wrap there. For Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.